Hey everybody, I'm Eric Oberempt, and you're listening to Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. We talk about real shit, what's on our minds, and don't give a fuck if it makes you feel a little uncomfortable. So sit back, strap in, and get ready for some real shit. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Be Authentic or Get the Fuck Out. I'm your host, Eric Oberempt. So the way that we start every episode, we'd like to thank our sponsors, D&M Roofing and Siding, because they fucking pay for everything. And Roofers in Recovery, they don't pay for shit, but we try to give them as much money as humanly possible. So the way that we're also kind of reiterating in the beginning of this to get all the housekeeping out of the way is on every episode in the beginning, I stole this from Andy Frisella, but we do not have sponsors. One of the reasons, other than nobody's really fucking offered, but one of the reasons that we don't have sponsors is I want to be able to say whatever the fuck I want to say here because it's my show, and I want my guests to be able to say whatever the fuck they want to say without any concern of recourse from people providing money. So because of that, I need to continuously ask you for the cost of admission to be, please share the shit out of this if you actually enjoyed it and you got something out of it and you learned something and you think somebody else can get something out of it as well. Please share it with your friends, share it on all whatever the fuck social media shit you use. I would appreciate that. So, housekeeping out of the way. I'm excited. Today has been an amazing day already, and I would like to introduce my guest today, Skip Kingery. Skip, thank you for being here, buddy.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
Good afternoon. Yes, it is afternoon, isn't it?
It is.
Today has been awesome. So, everybody watching, understand we just got done going on a skydive together, and not only did I went and did a tandem skydive, not with Skip, but with another little man because I'm a big man. But what was really cool about it was, and I've done it before, but it's been a decade, but we got to do a skydive, not just go skydiving. Is that how you explained it?
Yeah, it's a big difference. You know, going on a tandem skydive, you're a passenger.
Right.
All you do is kind of look at the ground. That's Google Earth. We get that for free every day.
Right.
What we did today was completely different because we actually participated in a group skydive.
Yep.
So, you know, not only was it you, your tandem instructor on your back, literally he was about half your size.
Yes.
He was riding you through that skydive.
Yes.
But we had our camera flyer and myself also come in, build a formation together and kind of get that real experience of what it's actually like to be on a skydive where you're participating amongst friends,
right? And
you know, really participating in the activity together as opposed to solo, just looking at the ground.
That's what was cool, because like you did feel like you were together, right? And you're doing it all in this very short amount of time, you know, because you were like, fucking, let's go, get over here.
Yeah. Give me your hand.
We're running out of time, bitch. The ground's coming.
It was.
It was. And then I was telling you afterwards, one of the coolest parts was we pulled early. You said we pull at about 5,000 feet.
Yeah.
And you guys go to about 3. Mm-hmm. But after we pulled, looking down and seeing them just fucking like this, you know, still going and looking up at me while after we pulled, it was just an amazing experience. And I wanted to, you know, I thanked you, but I want to thank you on camera, just like, it was so much more fun than I've ever had in the past doing it.
Yep.
And getting to do it with a friend makes all the difference in the world. So thank you for that experience today. I want to talk more about how you got into that and everything here, you know, in a second, but just great day. Great day.
Awesome. And thank you. You did an awesome job.
Thank you.
That was a killer skydive.
I mean, I feel like you do an awesome job as long as you get to come here later, like that you make it.
Yeah. You know,
right?
when you get in skydiving school, you know, we do all kinds of training before you do your first jump with your own parachute in the accelerated free fall course, which is the student course of skydiving. The only way that you fail is not pulling your parachute. Right. If you get out and you fall down and you pull your parachute, you pass.
You passed.
And you definitely passed and far surpassed that.
Thank you. So yeah, that was a great time. So I do want to get into that. I want to tell everybody before we get into that kind of who Skip is, just a little bit, not your whole story yet or anything, but just what does Skip do now to make money? So everybody kind of knows what that background is, right? And then we'll kind of get into the offshoots of the other shit.
Yeah, so I'm a co-owner with 2 other fabulous partners of a solar power company. We do solar power roofing, battery installations called Current Home. And we've got about roughly 200 employees, and we'll do, you know, a couple thousand homes a year.
That's awesome.
So a lot of solar installations. We've got maybe 13 years in the business and have owned my own business since 2018.
This business is since 2018.
That's correct.
And
Yeah, June of 2018.
Did you work for somebody before that, or did you have your own company and you got rid of it? How did that work?
I did, yeah. So I worked for a few solar companies in my first few years until I really found the environment that provided me the knowledge, tools, and resources I needed to have an environment that created a successful path to kind of climb the ladder and grow my career. So I started off in Pennsylvania, working at a small solar company, worked at a couple small solar companies there, eventually found a large national company where I started getting my first formalized sales training and a sales process, understanding the psychology of selling.
Right.
And then my career really took off. About the same time, I fell in love with skydiving, which brought me to the West Coast. And the market in Southern California has been a fantastic solar market for a decade plus.
Yeah.
And that's when my career really took off.
Is it still, or is it kind of so saturated that it's hard?
Believe it or not, it is still an incredible market. Are we climbing higher up on the tree for the fruit? Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're dealing with older homes, maybe homes that need more electrical upgrades, roofing modifications and upgrades to be able to do the solar project.
Yeah.
But it's still a thriving
That's
market.
great for you too anyway, right?
That's great too.
You get a double ticket.
You get multiple sales out of one customer, right?
Yeah.
And the hardest thing in business that I've found is acquiring the customer.
Right.
And if you can acquire the customer and sell them multiple products,
right,
all the better.
Yeah, that really is like in sales for people watching this in the industry though. That is the hardest part, is just getting that acquisition to be able to get in front of them. Once you get in front of them, if you know what the fuck you're doing and you have the processes like we were talking about earlier, like you've got this very dialed in process. And for, business owners that are watching, this whole thing isn't going to be about sales and selling, but I think that it's super beneficial. Do not have processes like you, but I feel like I've got very good processes. When we bring new people in, they're like, oh my God, compared to these other companies, like you guys are fucking killing it. But then you start telling me about yours and I'm like, wow. And I think that that's a lesson that like a lot of people can learn, is that that's when you have a business and you don't have a job, right? And you're empowering these other people to be able to succeed. So, I mean, talk a little bit about how that process.
Yeah, I mean, so we as a business, our kind of approach is be master marketers.
Mm-hmm.
And, one of the biggest challenges you have in any kind of home improvement sales is managing your cost of acquisition. And so we've become really great at collecting data, interpreting that data, and modifying our processes to maximize what we would call like our KPI funnel metrics, right? And that's a tremendous benefit for us because we know how to collect data, we know what that data means, and we know how to pivot and move off of that and adjust our processes. And to convert better throughout the funnel, from whether it's knocking on a door to setting an appointment, to getting someone to actually show up for a presentation, to presenting to closing, and from closing to keeping that customer from canceling and going all the way through the installation. You have to have really great processes, and certainly on the sales side, it's our intention to, one, have better presentation materials, a better flow of the chapters of materials that we'll cover in a certain order, walk the customer through the right emotions of the right information at the right time, the right amount of information, so that they can take a subject that's brand new to them and then feel comfortable making an informed decision an hour and a half later.
And that's who people want to work for. People that have taken the time to invest into that, because like we were talking before, like your clients, your reps, right? Like that's the people that you're taking care of.
Yeah. As a manager, my right are my employees,
right?
And your employees have the direct customers, right?
Right.
But if you keep that mentality that you always have customers that you need to report to and deliver great service for, it'll keep you refining your practice and getting better and better, just like athletes approach it. And I look at sales and business ownership as sports, much like I look at skydiving as a sport, wrestling as a sport, MMA as a sport, any of those things.
Yeah. So let's go back to when you got into skydiving, because we talked a little bit about this earlier today, and I love the story. I mean, you were living in fucking trailers in a parking lot and like doing all kinds of crazy shit. Tell me how that started, and how you got to where you are now, and some of the different competitions and stuff that you've done.
Yeah. So first skydive ever, I did at 21 years old. One of my college girlfriends, she was putting together a group of people to go skydiving.
One of your college girlfriends, like you had multiple at the same time, or
a friend that was a female.
Okay, got it. Right.
And my friend Nicole really wanted to go skydiving.
Yep.
And it was like $50 cheaper per person if we could get 10 people together.
Deal. Let's go.
All of a sudden, boom, overnight, Nicole organized this whole group of 21-year-old people to go skydiving. we all went, we had a blast, and it was really a very novelty bucket list kind of thing. And frankly, we were too poor to do that again within the same calendar year as college kids, right? And so we do that one skydive. I fell in love with it. Didn't think twice about it, but I knew I loved it. And it was such an amazing experience. It wasn't at all what I thought. I thought immediately I'd be terrified. It would be the feeling of falling.
Right.
And it would be over. And it wasn't at all. Yeah. Immediately you get out. Like if you're driving your car 70 miles an hour down the highway, you stick your hand out the window, you feel all this pressure. Well, when we jump out of the airplane, we're doing like 100, right? And so instead of feeling that sensation of falling, you automatically feel like you're floating on this giant pillow of air. Mm-hmm. And I just thought to myself out of nowhere, I was like, wow, this is not at all what I expected. Instead of being this like extreme thing where I'm like, woo, it was like, whoa, this is comfortable. This is calm. Yeah. This is peaceful.
Yeah.
You ask Mike O'Donnell, who I went skydiving with, who's also part of our D2D network. He had the exact same experience. He was like, wow, it was such a peaceful, meditative state for him.
Yes.
And Sam Taggart, same story.
Yeah. I wouldn't disagree. Like that was, everybody's like, woo. I'm like, I'm not woo-hooing. Like I'm in it.
Yeah. I mean, it is woo when you get on the ground, but when you're doing it, you're just so engulfed in the moment and living in that moment. It's just this cool thing. You didn't expect it to be so gentle, soft, comfortable. Yeah. And so it's really cool. So I knew immediately I fell in love with it. And then 5 years go by. I'm dating my college sweetheart, now my wife, and we take her for her 21st or 22nd birthday or something like that. And she loved it, had a phenomenal time. And I said, that's it. We landed on the ground. I started calling around local skydive centers. Within a couple hours, we were signed up for skydiving school. 2 weeks later, we're in skydiving school. We paid cash up front for the whole darn thing, so we couldn't back out.
Right.
Bought all the equipment right away. We were just like...
Oh, really? Bought all the equipment right away, too?
Everything. We did everything against how you should, like dip your toe in the water.
Yeah.
But when I know that I want something, I commit to it, and then I figure out how to get to where I know I wanted to go.
Yep.
And just figure it out. Yeah. And so that's what we did. So we just like doubled down on everything. We went full in. And then all of a sudden, like 2 years go by, a couple hundred skydives go by, and I realized like this is all I want to do. Mm-hmm. And that's eventually what took us out here to California.
So, and when you do, you know, I meant to ask this question actually in the car, because you were saying, you know, we'd go out on the weekends and we just skydive all day, and then we'd, you know, go on the boat or whatever it was, right? What does skydive all day mean? So like, you know, we got done, and then obviously Luis went back up because he had to go, but like, how fast did you turn? Like you go pack your chute again and fucking go, or like how?
Yeah. So if we're training for a competition or something like that, you know, we'll try and do 10 skydives in a day.
Really?
You know, so we'll go up. It takes about 12 minutes to get up to 13,000 feet. We'll jump out at 13,000 feet. It takes about 2 minutes and 30 seconds to come down from the skydive to using our smaller parachutes to landing on the ground. And then boom, we get down, and from taking off to coming back down, typically they measure that in about 20-minute cycles in skydiving.
Okay.
So if you have two parachutes, you'll be lucky enough to where you can go and do a skydive, land your other parachute's ready on the ground, and you grab that one and you go up. So every 20 minutes you're taking off the ground. So you've only got, you know, maybe 5 minutes on the ground once you land.
Oh.
If you don't have that luxury of having two parachutes,
right.
You know, you'll take off, you'll wait 20 minutes once you land, pack up, and then get up and go again.
Gotcha. Hence the guys down there that were all packing chutes, you said, for
exactly. You'll drop your parachute off with those guys. They'll pack you up for $7.
Right.
And you grab your other one and you get back up on the airplane and you keep going and training. Because, you know, it's kind of like riding the school bus on the way home from school. You can get real tired. So we're trying to like stay super focused, really dial in these skills.
Right.
And if you're tired and exhausted, it doesn't work well. So we try and jam as many skydives into a half day or a 3/4 day as possible before you start getting to those points of diminishing returns.
Yeah. Because the competitions for everybody, because I didn't really understand this before, but like the competitions are formations and fucking falling on your head. You said, you know, like upside down, like doing this world record that you're trying to get. Like, tell people more about those, like how you do the formations and how many people and all that kind of, I mean, you got 10 planes going up in this one that you're trying to do here in September, October.
Yeah. So, you know, a typical skydiving competition, like the USPA National Championships, that's like our version of the X Games.
Okay.
We actually got kicked out of the X Games because you can't watch us live. And so we couldn't sell tickets and fill the stands. So we're kind of like the coolest sport that is the lamest sport to televise at the same time. So that's why all skydivers are bums and live in parking lots and vans and like campers and stuff.
Because there's not a lot of money to be made.
There's like no money to be made. I mean, a really good professional skydiver can make 6 figures, no doubt about it. But that's tough, and you're pushing it, and it's hard to keep that up for so long. You got to pick up big sponsors like GoPro or Red Bull, things like that.
I mean, and you're top 1% at that point, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So yes, for the average.
But like when we're competing, for example, like how do you compete in skydiving? People are like, do you fall the hardest? What do you do?
Yeah, exactly.
And so what'll happen is I compete in a couple different things called vertical formation skydiving or mixed formation skydiving. So what'll happen is we'll get a list of like 30 or 40 different formations that a team could possibly do. And what happens is before the competition, the judges will pull out like 6 formations per jump, and there'll be certain formations in a certain order. And when we jump out of the plane, our team, whether it's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 people, depending on the discipline that you're involved in, will jump out, and you've got 35 seconds from when your feet leave the airplane to do those formations in that order over and over and over again as many times as you can. And every time you successfully complete a formation, that scores a point. And technically, one of the most important teammates on your team is the videographer. So if they forget to turn on the camera, 0 points.
Oh, shit.
Camera dies, 0 points. So typically, they've got 2 or 3 cameras rigged up on their helmet at any one time, and they're technically the most important person on the team. And that's how we score. And then we land on the ground. We hand the judges our footage, and then all the teams anxiously wait in front of a big screen, and then they play all of our footage back over and over and over again. And we watch ourselves get live scored in front of the judges, all sitting around all the other teams. And, we're hemming and hawing and cheering and crying. We're like, no,
Really?
Yeah.
That's really cool.
And so it's super cool.
I'd love to see that, someday. That just seemed like that'd be a cool experience to be part of.
And then the record that you were just mentioning. So we're doing something called the vertical skydiving record. And what that is we're trying to get 200 skydivers upside down, holding hands in a single formation at one time. So you got to get 200 people jumping out of 10 different airplanes, all coalescing into this one formation, and we're covering large distances across the sky.
Yeah.
And we're hitting crazy speeds in the.
And you've got a minute, you said, to do it, basically.
Yeah, we've got basically a minute to jump out of 10 different airplanes, all come together, all grab all the right hands and all the right people in the right places, and everything be perfect so that we can get video and several still shots of that formation completed. So our current record upside down is 164. We tried to do 200, I think 2 years ago, and we failed. And we're going to give it another go this year. But the good news is we have more talented skydivers today than we did 2 years ago. And so we've got a better bench to work with. And I think we're going to do it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And where's it at?
That's going to be at Skydive Chicago in Ottawa, Illinois in 3 weeks. So it starts, I think, the 21st of August.
That's awesome. Well, good luck.
Thank you. And we'll do that like 5 times a day, every day for 5 days and hope that we get it on one of those 1 minutes.
Right. What do you do if you get it on the first one?
We party.
Okay.
Yeah, it's done. It's over. It's over. Yeah, we're camping for a week and we're just celebrating.
We're fucked up for a week. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I love that. That's perfect. Let's talk real quick about, I want to go back to when we met and how we met. Yep. Just because I think it's very interesting. As I get older, I appreciate friendships that actually start later in life, right?
Sure.
Because we're so used to when you're younger, you've got these relationships that you grow up with your whole life, right? And you're like, well, I've known Billy since 5th fucking grade and, whatever, right? And it was funny because Lexi actually asked me this morning, we were getting in the car driving up here, and she asked me, like, who's your oldest friend that you've known the longest? And it took me a while because, like, I've got some old friends that, like, I knew from grade school or high school or middle school, whatever. But, like, I talk to them, but I don't. Right, like
like your family, and you'll always be the same.
Right,
but I might not be engaged with you on my day-to-day activities any longer.
Right. But it's always interesting to me. Like I said, as I get older and I think about it, like these new relationships that I've made, and these new friendships that I've made over the last 5-10 years. That I remember being the guy sitting in a room going, "Motherfucker, I don't need any more goddamn friends." Like, I have got enough friends and enough fucking acquaintances. Like, I do not need to meet anybody else. And I still say that.
Yeah. I remember you saying things similar to that.
Do you?
Yeah.
I mean, it was honest to God fucking truth though. I believe that. And it's funny though, cause my wife and I joke about it cause she's the same way. But then she looks at me and she's like, but you're full of fucking shit. You've got different people in your fucking life all the time. And, and I'm like, God, that's a really good point. So I've made these amazing friendships over the years and, we might not talk all the time, but when we do, it's like, we've been hanging out for a long time, but it all goes back to these experiences that you have with people.
Yeah.
Right. It goes back to the experiences and the stuff that you did together. And I was actually trying to rack my brain on which, circle event it was that we met at originally. Do you remember? What was the first one that you went on?
I want to say it was our event in Park City that I feel that we met at. Was either our first or our second meeting. But I remember I was dressed up in that like ridiculous romper one piece, like pineapple outfit.
But that wasn't when we had to do the weird experiment where we were talking to people in our past or something like that. Remember that? And we had to yell at each other to our face.
That was that. That was
not the first time I met you. That couldn't.
Okay, that must have been our second time. But that's what we did, and I think that's when we really connected.
Yeah, because Sam put us together because he was like, "You and Skip need to be together for this or whatever." But I was trying to remember what the hell the event was before that, where we got to know each other. Do you not remember either?
I can't remember what the first one.
I'll have to call Sam and find out.
Yeah,
because I don't remember where we were, but I remember how we just happened to kind of get drawn to each other.
Yeah.
And part of it was when I came in to the circle for the first time. I've told this story a couple of times, but I did it in Mexico in Puerto Vallarta.
Yeah.
And I showed up there and I had no clue what the fuck I was getting into.
So I joined right after that, right while you guys were down there, right after you guys were down there. Yeah.
So right after Puerto Vallarta.
That's when I joined.
Okay. So I walk in to Puerto Vallarta. I walk into Mexico and it's me and 80% of these Mormon kids.
Very different cut of cloth.
Yes. And I walk in, I'm like, fucks up everybody. And they're like, oh, we will pray for you. And I'm like, I don't know if you want
It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. And it was so awkward at first. And I remember hiding, I hid in a corner. I didn't talk to anybody except Steven. Steven and I kind of hit it off a little bit.
Yeah, Steven's super cool.
He is. And I kind of hid in a corner and it took me a day and a half to open up. But what was funny is that now a lot of those guys that were at that original retreat are some of my closest friends now, right? Because we spent this time together where we got vulnerable and we talked about shit that you don't talk to about.
You got real
people.
We got authentic. We played full out.
Yes, and it's such a game changer. And I was curious because honestly, this is something that I kind of forgot about when we were driving back here. And you were like, I mean, you remember I got the atheist thing going on, right? And I was like, oh fuck, that's right. I totally forgot about that. And that brought me back though to that moment of wow, what was that like for Skip? Right. And not that it's probably something that you dealt with your whole life, having conversations with people and whatever.
Yeah. I mean, going to Catholic high school.
Right. So, but here's the thing. The point of the show is, and what we say actually before most of the shows is we explain to the guests, this is a place that we have deemed as a comfortable place to have uncomfortable conversations that people won't have because people don't understand today what empathy is.
Sure.
And understanding somebody else's point of view, even if you don't agree with it, but understanding that they're probably coming from a good place, their intent is good. Even if I think you're batshit fucking crazy, right? If I know though that you're a good human and I really want to learn more about you, that was the purpose of putting the show together. And just so I could hang out with cool people selfishly and have conversations. But I don't know a lot about that world, right? I'm a very anti-religious person.
Yep.
But I have my Alcoholics Anonymous, I have my AA, I have my I've got that spirituality side of me that has nothing to do with religion. but I've never had a real honest conversation with somebody to learn more about what that is. And I was like, fuck it. We're doing that today because I want to learn about it, because you're one of the smartest motherfuckers I know. So I know that you've got the story down, and I want to hear it. Like, I want to know more about that and how you found that in your life.
Yeah. So
especially going to a Catholic school growing up.
That's when I knew I wasn't religious.
Okay.
For sure.
Okay.
I was like, I had never seen so much preaching this and then behaving in such a contradictory way ever before in my life. And I was like, well, that's for sure. But I never grew up in a religious family. You know, my parents asked me, I actually asked my parents to start going to church when I was a little kid.
Oh, okay.
Just because like so many other kids did it. So I was like, why am I left out?
Right.
You know, and my parents are like, okay, what church would you like to go to? And I was like, I don't know. It's not just one, you know? And then,
why is there not just one?
And so they took me around to certain churches. We would go do some, Roman Catholic stuff, because I grew up in southeastern Pennsylvania in the suburbs of Philadelphia, just outside of Wilmington, Delaware, and huge Italian influence there. So being Roman Catholic was really common in my area.
Right.
Growing up in Pennsylvania, we also have like Quaker meetings and things like that. So they took me to some Quaker meetings. They took me to some Catholic, church meetings. And, then I was like, you know what? I think I'm okay just doing what I'm doing. And I think, what I've realized in my life is it's so important to so many people to have answers to things that they're unsure about or don't know about. And what I've had to force myself to learn to be comfortable with is being comfortable with not knowing what I don't know. And, I don't know if atheism or agnostic or whatever is the right term.
Right.
What I do know is, and, you look at all these new telescope pictures, right? There's so much stuff that's going on outside of our little fishbowl of Earth that I am so comfortable just saying, I don't know.
Right.
And I'm definitely comfortable saying, I don't think you or your ridiculous story makes any sense.
Agreed.
So why don't we just admit we really don't know what we don't know?
Right.
And just, work with what we do know and just plow forward and not hate people or spite people or have any kind of weird rules or restrictions on all these like made up scenarios.
Right.
So I'm just comfortable, and I think you have to be confident in yourself and confident with the fact that it's okay that I don't know stuff. Right. And I know that I don't know this stuff. And when anybody tells me they know this stuff and I pry a few layers of the onion back, I'm like, well, you don't know either, you know? And so like, let's not make it up.
Right.
And I'm comfortable saying, I don't know. I know there's way more out there than I understand. I mean, we don't know what's going on in all these telescope pictures and everything. So like, let's just say we don't know yet.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. Yeah. Maybe we'll know when we die. Maybe we won't.
Yeah. And
I don't know.
I love that. And so the reason though that I asked the question is, and maybe again, the fact that you used the label took me to a different place, right? That made me think that, that you had this very candid point of view of, because like, if you look up that word, like to a lot of people,
I believe nothing.
I believe that that there is nothing, like, fuck you. And when I'm dead, I'm dead. I'm in a fucking hole and I'll be worm food. And like, there's nothing out there, whether it's energy or power or whatever. And the reason that I was surprised that that you use that label was because with all of the other things that you do and the skydiving and everything else, you seem to me like somebody that believes in energies. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, look, I believe,
and I could be 100% wrong. I'm
I
making
believe in
shit
chasing
up, right?
passion. I believe in chasing whatever makes you feel good. I believe in myself more than anything. And so I believe in a lot of stuff. And I'm also just comfortable saying I don't understand a lot of stuff too.
Gotcha. You're fucking putting the brakes on me here. He's putting the fucking brakes on me, isn't he? Like, I've got him really fucking close to saying what he really wants to say that's in his fucking stomach, and he's not fucking saying it.
No, that's the truth. I don't think we as humans have figured it out.
I agree. And just to be clear, everything that you're saying right now, I 100% agree with. I feel like there's another level that I'm missing.
Yeah, I don't know what you're looking for.
No, I'm not. Okay. No. All right. I'll admit if I'm wrong, but I agree with that to the point of, and the reason that I bring this up today is because I don't get the opportunity to talk to people that do have similar belief systems as I do, because I've not even on purpose, but I have surrounded myself with an amazing group of people that I do business with, that I do work with, that I do all kinds of other things with, right? And they all have this very structured religious belief system that I don't I don't flow with, right? Yeah. And they all and nobody calls me out for it, or nobody disrespects me for it, or anything like that. But I always feel on the outside a little bit. And I actually,
same. No, I felt the same.
Yep, I always feel on the outside. But in that circle, I'll have conversation and be like, look, I do believe that there's something, but what I don't know is that what I do know is that I don't know what it is, right? Like I've got a thing with the environment and the land and the water and the sky, and you know what I mean? Like there's something to that energy that's in the world. I don't know what the fuck it is, but I feel like I can feel it, and I know that it's there, and
like whatever. A lot of Native American proverbs and things like that really speak to me. How you treat the earth and how the world, circles back. Like a lot of that stuff. Look, what I do know is everything is related, and every action has an equal and opposite reaction, but it might come in a different form than you expect. It might not come right away. You might do something now and it comes back to you later. So sometimes you do something and the ripple effect is very immediate and very clear. And sometimes you do something and you don't understand the impact it has, and you're not expecting how that's going to circle back and impact other things later.
Yep, I agree with that. Yeah, like I said, this was more of a selfish conversation because that's because cool. I don't ever get to have it with anybody.
You got it.
And then when we get into some of those groups, some of those masterminds and things like that, and you're like, again, to your point of like, love your crazy stories, you know what I mean? And they've all got different ones.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, how the fuck are you right and you're right?
Well, if there's like a couple thousand religions out there, like 2,000 something, right? And it's probably growing by the day. It's like new religions are where like I wear fuzzy animal costumes. That's a religion, right? That's probably not.
I bet it is.
But it's like, okay, the second you identify that this is my story that I identify with, you're like statistically at such a disadvantage of being right. Like the second you pick a lottery ticket, it's like, oh yeah, good luck, buddy.
Right.
And so I just say, we're like, enough with all that noise. Let's just admit we don't know what we're talking about. We're figuring out more every year. We're disproving all these things that we thought were things that aren't things more and more every year. What I believe in is I believe in the scientific process. I believe in the effort of humans to continue to pursue new information. And I believe in my desire to go out there and conquer new things and gather more information and intel on my side so I can make more informed decisions and opinions throughout my life. Yeah.
And I wish that conversation could be more open, I guess, right? Like with others, right? That are so staunch in their belief system. I wish that conversation could be more open because they usually don't want to hear what someone else has to say because it threatens.
The easy thing and the simple thing is to say X, Y, or Z because of this, and that's something I stand behind.
Right.
A harder thing to do is say, let me truly collect enough data that I can have a meaningful review of data and then make the most informed decision as possible.
Right.
It's so much easier to be like, I believe this because this is my religion, my stance on some policy, my stance on politics. I'm going to vote down my party line.
Right.
That's so easy. It takes no effort to think and vote down your party line.
Correct. Yeah.
The way I like to vote is I literally, when I have to vote, I will research every single person, their stances, previous views that they've had on certain things, and I will vote across party lines because I want to get the job done right.
Right.
And so I take that same approach to my life when it comes to religion, political beliefs, whatever it is. Yeah. I just want to collect data. I want to collect good data. I want to collect enough data, and then I want to make an informed decision.
Yeah, data's good.
Yeah, I like data.
And I know that the data argument and actually I take that back. It's always the proof argument, right? Because people be like, "Well, I want proof," and then that argument back is, "That's why it's called faith."
Well, and that's not proof.
Correct.
And so I just.
No, I know.
I can't get on board with that.
No, I know. I'm trying.
But you're making a great point because it falls back on this default of, well, I'm just going to stand behind this stance. as opposed
no
to
matter what.
I'm going to continue to make decisions based off the information available,
right?
Or not make decisions because there's not enough. I'm not going to form an opinion because I can't form a solid opinion.
Because we all live by the same principles.
Yeah, that's, you know, and what I find out is when I find myself debating with somebody or listening to a debate, you take a step back and you're like, wow, we agree on 98% of stuff in humanity, except for these two little things that we get like super hunkered down on. And then all of a sudden we have great conflict. When we should be like, dude, this is 98% the same. That's an A+.
Right.
You know, and a grade. You're like, I've never got those in school.
Yeah, like we should be best friends.
It's such a funny thing that we have way more in common than we don't. And in a lot of our religions, whether they have different stories or whatever, they come down to often very common policies, stances, ways of treating people.
Absolutely. Which is why we should just live anyway.
Right.
I don't need the book to tell me that. So okay, let's steer off. What the other thing that I wanted to talk about today is, well, I want to talk a little bit more about you. So people, because again, the other thing that we really like to do here is I want people to get to know, because there might be people watching this that know of you.
Sure.
Right.
Yeah.
That know of you, but they don't actually know Skip.
Yeah.
Right. And they don't know what Skip's been through. They don't know who Chip is. Right. They don't know the alter ego of Chip, but they don't know where that came from and kind of some of the struggle that you went through to get here. So I want to hear a little bit about that, about what we were talking about at the kitchen sink, you know, this morning. I want to hear about the, like I've said a million times, drug dealers are the best fucking entrepreneurs in the world. Like you went through a period of that as well, as did I, as did 8 of my other guests.
Yeah.
Like start back to where you got that entrepreneurial bug.
So, you know, I grew up in an amazing middle-class home. You know, like some people determine being rich by having assets, having capital, traveling, things like that. I was super family rich. I grew up in a family where I talk with my parents multiple times a day. We're in a group chat. Super awesome household. My parents have been together since before I was alive, still together now, you know, and they're just so happy together. Just super warm, caring people. Yeah. I also grew up with an older brother that made my life very difficult. You know? And we're both competitive wrestlers and athletes. And, you know, that gave me this like really competitive edge. So I was always this like competitive young kid that wanted to prove himself and always wanted to be doing what the kids my brother's age, 7 years older than I was, were doing, were interested in, or performing at a certain level. So I always held myself to a super high standard in that way. And it made me very competitive. And then, you know, I grew up in an amazing middle-class family, but I was living in an area that was surrounded by people that had like real wealth, you know, and a lot of my friends, you know, they're getting a BMW for their first car and all these other things, and or just having a cooler skateboard, or maybe they had a cell phone 5 years before I had a cell phone. I mean, I didn't send my first text message until I was in college. And, you know, so it's kind of cool growing up in that last generation before phones and that kind of technology and, you know, just living that different life. It's a very different life. And if I ever wanted anything, I realized I just had to go get it, and I had to be creative. If I wanted the remote control cars that my friends had, or the bicycle or the skateboards, I had to find a way to go get it. And my first job as an entrepreneur, a friend of mine and I started selling these goods. And so basically my friend's dad owned a store like a CVS. It was in Northern Delaware called Happy Harry's. Love the name.
Great name.
Sounds awesome.
Yes.
And so he owned this Happy Harry's. It closes down. He takes all the remaining inventory, stashes it in his basement. And his son comes to me and he's like, hey, I've got all this stuff that I think we can sell on the school bus that kids will like. And I'm like, all right, well, what do kids want? And he was like, well, we got condoms and lighters. And every fourth grader wants the problem of needing a condom someday. And who doesn't want to play with fire when you're that old? And we were like, boom, we've got a business plan. So next thing you know, we're in business and we're sitting in the back of the school bus and we're slinging Trojans and Lifestyles and Rough Riders and like even these brands you don't even hear anymore. And
how'd you get a price point on that?
Man, we were selling these things for like a quarter, 2 quarters. Like we're working with lunch money here. So you're literally working with coins. Like if we collected $1 bill, we were like, oh man. You know, it's like my money don't jiggle. It folds as $1, right? Like that crazy meme that's going around right now or whatever. And so we were like, dude, we got a business. I remember like one day I made like $17 on the school bus. And when you're in 4th grade, $17 is a lot of bucks, man, to make in a day. And one of my buddies was like showing off like a lighter or something in his desk. And, you know, those are the old school desks that fold up and you keep your materials in and they fold down.
Yeah.
So he opens it up and he gets caught with some lighters and stuff in there. He's a grade younger than me. So, of course, he rats out.
Motherfucker. Piece of shit.
He's one of my best friends, introduced to my cousin, married to my cousin now, part of the family,
Really?
Kids in my family. Yeah. Love the guy to death. But he rats us all out and I end up getting suspended for a couple days. And I can't tell if my parents were more impressed or more upset because I didn't really get in trouble. My dad and I went out to a lake and rented ski-doos and got a haircut while I was suspended. And I never felt like I was in trouble. I knew I had done something that wasn't along with the rules.
Yeah.
But I didn't really hurt anybody.
Right.
And, you know, I was just trying to get from A to B. And then all of a sudden, my whole life changed from that experience. I'm like, if you want something, you can find a way to go get it. And it's up to you to learn how to navigate the different rule systems to do it in a way that allows you to keep doing that sustainably. That lesson didn't set in until many years later.
Yeah.
So that was like my first entrepreneurial experience. And, you know, I'm in 4th grade, so I may be like 10 years old or 8 years old. I mean, how old are you in 10th grade or 4th grade? Yeah. So that was where I was at. And then I hit 12 years old and my neighbor's a stone contractor. He's doing driveways, sidewalks, like really decorative, like patios. It's all beautiful stonework. And I worked for him for 1 weekend, and I had wanted this remote control car from Radio Shack. It was like $120. And in our family budget, like that was such not a priority.
Yeah.
And not like we didn't have any money at all.
Right.
But spent $100 in the 80s or 90s.
Yeah.
I guess it was coming close to 2000 on something like that. Just not a priority when you're trying to manage a household and things like that. And so I worked that 1 weekend. And then boom, I could buy my remote control car, spare batteries, and I was ready to go. And I was like, wow, that was the craziest thing ever because I enjoyed the hard work.
Yeah.
I enjoyed learning a new skill. I enjoyed the exercise and stepping back and looking at a job that was a job site and now I'll complete a beautiful project for a customer that they're thrilled with. Everything was just wins all around.
Yeah.
And then I got to go do this thing for myself that would have never happened on that timeline,
Right.
you know, doing it naturally through my family just as a kid that doesn't work.
Right.
And then instantaneously overnight, I was like, I'm a worker and I want to work. And
What an
I wanna
amazing
be in construction
concept.
forever.
If you work, you can have nice things.
Yeah, I know. It sounds
Sorry, I
simple.
didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that was it.
There's a
It
lot of
sounds
people
simple.
that don't understand that fucking concept today.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't want to work and I want nice things.
Yeah.
Well, fucking eat a dick. You don't get to have those things
Yeah.
then.
I know my worth.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly.
But I'm not willing to prove it.
But yeah. Sorry, go on.
You know, so that was when I really got into work, and I never left construction since then. So ever since I was 12, I worked construction every summer, and then later on in high school, I kind of got like forced into selling pot. A buddy of mine.
I want to hear how you got forced into it. Let's go.
There's no joke.
Okay.
This is like a real scary story.
All right.
And that guy's doing many, many years in jail right now
Okay.
for trying to kill a police officer.
Oh,
Crazy
fuck.
story. Yeah. So what happened is my buddy and I used to ride the school bus with like the biggest school bully, scariest dude ever. And he was actually the guy I connected with you about that robbed me later in life. When we were at that circle thing in Park City.
Yeah.
And I was like, that guy ripped me off so bad. That stuck with me and hurt me for the rest of my life because I thought he was a good friend and a mentor, and then he robbed me. I'm like, what? That's so crazy. And so we were just trying to buy some weed, and the guy was selling like ounce of weed for like what you would pay for like a quarter ounce or something like that. And so like, it was just like this crazy deal. And like a few of our friends like scratched together a couple $, you got $20, $20. And we're like, dude, we're going to pop for the whole summer, you know, and that's all we think we're going into this with. And the guy's like, hey, you guys know a lot of kids and a lot of people, like you need to start selling this. Like, no, we just want this. He's like, I'm going to give you this bag and you're going to give me this amount of money back in this many days. And then we were like, holy shit, how do we not get our asses kicked? And how do we sell this weed? And that was how it all started.
Oh my God.
And then literally we just started selling pot to all our regular friends and stuff. And it went way quicker than we thought. And we paid the guy back and we're like, finally, we're done. And then he was like, here's your new bigger bag. And I'm like, oh God.
You had a re-up.
You know, yeah. So now I'm like a junior in high school and I'm at all these wrestling tournaments. I was a high level wrestler in high school. And now we're like selling pot under the bleachers and out in the parking lot.
Oh,
and like,
shit.
I've got like a quarter pound of weed in my backpack at the wrestling tournament, you know? And so it was a crazy thing. And then I did that for a little while. And then, you know, when I graduated high school, left to college, I'm like, that's all behind me. That was like a thing I didn't even want to get into, but you know, I ended up into it. And, but that was really cool because I got forced into an uncomfortable situation that I didn't want to be in, but there was a lot of economic opportunity. And we literally just went out there and we figured it out, the two of us, my buddy and I. And it was really successful, and it was really cool because I could pay for my car payment, I could pay for my gas, and like all these luxuries I didn't have, and I still kept all my construction job. Yeah, so now I just had this passive income over here, and then I had my hard, labor income through construction. Passive income.
Yeah, that's not a Grant Cardone fucking podcast.
Yeah,
we'll create passive income.
Yeah, it's slightly different. It creates a lot of passivity, that's for sure. But so that's what really happened, and then I go to college. I flunk out after my freshman year. I'm playing rugby. I decided I'm done wrestling after 12 years of wrestling, first grade through 12th grade. I'm done being a competitive wrestler. I'm so excited to taste food and understand what that's like and just like live at a natural weight. And so we're going through college, and I'm getting all this scholastic academic advice from the rugby team, which was a complete fail. And so I execute a perfectly planned CD average, and I get a 1.7 GPA. I think I crushed it. And by the way, going to college was a major stretch for my parents to pay for. Like, not that they couldn't do it, but it wasn't easy. It wasn't like the just write your check some parents do, no problem. Like, this was a major event in my parents' life that they were making massive sacrifices to be able to do. And bless their hearts, because, that's such a selfless thing to do on such a chance. You never know what you're going to get when you pay for that education for somebody, or you pay to get somebody in the rehab. They're going to collect your money whether they walk out day one or not. Correct. There's a lot of stakes on the line. And
had that happen.
Yeah, I'm sure. Right. And so, I start going to college. I don't take it seriously. I take it seriously enough to pass the courses that I needed to. I didn't fail a single course. And then I'm up on a roof doing a roof over the summer, replacing someone's roof. My mom calls me and she's like, Skip, I just got a letter in the mail. It says that you failed out for bad grades. And I'm like, no, Mom, that's wrong. I passed all my classes. They're like, yep, you said you got this GPA. That's below the minimum. You're suspended for a year.
I feel like they didn't give you the right expectations then. You passed.
Passing in college.
I know, that's bullshit.
It's very different than passing in high school.
There should have been a letter sent out prior to.
Their fault, not mine.
Yes, agreed.
Sure.
Yes,
yeah, of course, not the case. And so, so that's what happens, and that was a devastating moment to me, because that was the first time I really let my parents down, where I felt like they went on such a strong limb for me to sacrifice things that they could have done for themselves, that they've deserved for themselves for so long. And I truly made a decision that negatively impacted others. I did things that were outside of the rules throughout a lot of my life that allowed me to excel in my life without being a detriment to others. And that was such a hard pill to swallow for me. And I finished up that summer working my butt off. I had already signed a lease on a house with all my old roommates to go live in an apartment together. And so I'm like, that's it. I'm going back to Shippensburg, and I'm going to go back to Shippensburg University and live out the year there, and my commitments to everybody I made, and I'm going to get a new job. And so I get there, and I start working this construction job installing granite countertops, which I ended up doing for the next 5 years. And it was this pivotal life change for me, where I got this really hard-nosed boss. He was a really good guy, but he was a super hard-nosed guy. I had to be at his house at 5:30 every morning. We had to drive from central Pennsylvania down to the outskirts of Baltimore every morning. So we're there by like 7 o'clock in the morning. We pick up, 2 to 4 kitchens worth of countertops. Then we go out and we work until the job's done. We could be done by lunch and you get your daily wage, or you could be done at 1 a.m. and then we're struggling to get back, and then we're meeting at the house at 5:30 again tomorrow. And doing that job, he was such a stubborn guy, to our own detriment often. But it taught me such great discipline. And in addition to the discipline I got from becoming an Eagle Scout or being in the United States Naval Sea Cadet Corps, that work ethic and discipline his rule was, we do not leave a job until it's done that day. When we start a job, we don't leave until it's finished, unless there's something completely outside of our control, like not all the materials were delivered. And that changed something inside of me, between the ferocity I got from wanting to do right by my parents and through the determination I learned through that job. I was able to become a new person. I go to community college. So they make a deal with you when you get kicked out. You got to get at least a 2.5 GPA at a different school while you're kicked out. And then you can come back and prove after your suspension that you are worthy of readmittance.
Gotcha.
So I go to community college. I get a straight 4.0. And it was because I actually tried. Now
Sure.
I cared.
Right.
And if I care, I'm going to go all in.
Yep.
I got a 4.0, got right back in college, got good grades through the rest of college.
Oh,
Graduated.
did you finish college?
I did, yeah. I've got
good
a
for you,
degree in
bro.
geoenvironmental sciences. I went to school to become a meteorologist.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so my real name's Dave, right?
Yeah.
You know, and so I wanted to be the weather guy, Heat Wave Dave.
Ew.
Yeah, I thought it was no way. It was gonna be the best because imagine this, right? You're in your college town, you know, like that TV show Viva La Bam and a lot of Jackass stuff was filmed in Westchester, Pennsylvania. That's where I grew up.
Yeah.
And so to me, I was like, man, I'm gonna be at the bars in Westchester and girls are gonna be down there. I was like, is that Heat Wave Dave? I'm like, a storm is brewing, baby. You know, so I was like ready for it.
Oh my God, I love that so much and I hate it so much.
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful.
It really is. Oh my God.
But I love it so much, and that's what I went back to school for. And I switched out of being a business major. You know, funny because I'm a business owner now.
Yeah.
But I hated my business owner or the business major. I love learning about the sciences and just real world facts and things that I can digest, and it creates this greater understanding of how the world works.
Yeah.
And half of it was because I love skiing and snowboarding, and I just wanted to know how I could predict the snow to come. And so I was like, I want to learn the weather so I can learn when to ski and get that all dialed in. And then as I was doing that, I got sucked back into selling pot again. And so I had some friends in college that were pretty large drug dealers, you know, maybe selling 50 or 100 pounds of pot a week or something like that. And I had friends that were like these small time pot dealers. And I was watching these guys like all struggle and not be connected. And I was like just introducing a couple people a couple times.
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I could have made a few $100 off of that introduction.
Right.
And then I start doing that, and all of a sudden I'm selling like 5 to 20 pounds of weed a week in college. Probably like, you know, our little group was, you know, responsible for probably 80-90% of what was coming through that college at the time. And then I started making money hand over fist. And it was really cool because I was doing something I didn't feel like was harmful to other people.
Right.
You know, and I was meeting new people. I was making new friends. I was providing a service that people wanted. We were doing it better than other people were doing. And it was really fun because I started learning how to sell better. And then I started, you know, trying to employ other people. And then I was kind of like learning these sales managerial skills, right?
Right, yeah.
And I was doing all that. And so now, you know, I've made enough money to where I can, you know, lend the pot out to people and then they can go sell it and pay me back later.
Right.
And then I really built this business that was really successful. And we did that for a couple of years and it was fantastic. And then it got a little too big. And when you get too successful in that industry, you draw too much attention for the right and wrong reasons.
Yes.
And I recognized it was time to knock things off. I suggested to my partner at the time, it's time to do that too. He didn't. I stopped. He kept going. He ended up getting caught with 11 pounds and 80 grand cash in his house.
How long after you told him that?
Days. So I had gotten tipped off by one of my roommates. He was driving in front of my business partner's house and saw an unmarked car taking his trash. And I'm like, okay, that's all you need to know. There's no discussion.
No.
This is over.
Yeah.
You know? And I called him.
He was like, nah, we're good.
And he's like, no, I'm good. And I said, no way.
Fuck.
So like I took like it went down to like no matches or no lighters in my house. Nothing, not an ashtray.
Right.
Emptied all that out. I'm like, I'm out.
Maria
I'm done.
came over and deep cleaned that motherfucker.
I was Maria.
Yeah.
But it's Soy Maria.
Yeah. Soy Maria.
And so like it was like so cut and clear over for me. I was like, hey, we had fun, you know, and it happened so accelerated so quickly. I didn't realize how much trouble you can get in, but you know, selling pot in the 2000s in Pennsylvania, not a very progressive state in that regard.
Right.
I was like, I know it's my time. And then the next morning I get a call from his girlfriend, bawling, crying, 7 a.m. And she's like, they just raided the house. They took everything. They're probably going to come for you next. I'm like, send them on over.
Yeah.
You know, you're not even going to find a match in my house. And that never came. That
never came.
happened. Yeah, because we operated very differently. I mean, he would have, when a delivery would come in, he would have like 60, 70 people in his living room. And he grew up like not a guy with a lot of popularity. So the popularity of the job was more important to him than the money. And he really liked it.
Yeah.
I was at the opposite end of the spectrum where I had tons of friends. I was on all kinds of sports teams. And I was like, almost nobody knew I was involved with it. The only thing I would do is I would take the pounds and I would be like, okay, here's 20 pounds. This 5 goes to you. This 5 goes to you. These 2 go to you. These 3 go to you. This 5 goes to you.
Right.
I wouldn't even open the things out.
You were running a business.
There were only 4 people that knew I did what I was doing.
Right.
So it was awesome that nobody knew and I was able to have a successful business. I made far less money.
Right.
But I was able to run a sustainable business, which is way more
Lower
important
risk.
than getting over your skis in any kind of business of legality, legal, not legal, anything. And And so that was it. Cold turkey, done. I was like, I'm out of that. He did a year in prison, super uncool. And so that was it for me.
But didn't rat on anybody?
No, he didn't rat on anybody. He was awesome. He ate it, and he took it on the chin like a champ, and he owned up, and he did his time, and he got out, and he's got a good, successful life now. And doing
he does?
Stuff. Yeah.
Do you guys talk?
We haven't talked in several years. I mean, we're going back like 15 years or so. But
I remember the fear when I was in the midst of, and I didn't run weight, like that. And I never sold weed because I didn't like weed. I sold Coke because I love Coke. Yeah. And if I could buy more of it.
Far more exciting.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I've told the story before, but like I paid retail for Coke once.
Yeah.
And I was like, that is way too much. Like,
this is not sustainable.
This is not, no. I was like, can I just buy a bunch of it and then get it cheaper and maybe just sell it to a couple buddies of mine? They're like, yeah, sure you can.
That's how so many people get started and hustling every kind of drugs,
yeah,
right?
Exactly. But I remember at like getting towards the end, I remember like sitting up in a bedroom I had a window that looked out to the street, like in my front driveway. And I'd sit in what was my office, and I'd have fucking scales, set out.
Yeah,
the
whole thing.
I'm doing the whole thing, and like I'm half tweaked out. So like you're trying to dump it into a little baggie, and you're like, fuck, it's going everywhere, and like you can't get it in. And I remember looking outside that window, and there was a goddamn state trooper sitting outside of my house.
Oh my gosh.
I think just doing paperwork.
Yeah.
Right? But just chilling there, and I'm like, fuck is he doing?
That's close.
And I'm like,
too close.
And I'm losing my shit. And I'm like, do I flush it all? Like, do I flush it? Like, and I'm bagging everything up and I'm running into the toilet. And I'm like, I'll never forget this. I've never told this story, have I? And I remember running into the bathroom, and I don't know why. Here's the best part. So I had 2 bathrooms in this little house. Yeah. And one was down the hallway by the stairs that would come up from the front. And then the other one was like in the bedroom, like in the master bedroom.
Yep.
And in my mind, that was so much further away that I could put it in there, that it would give me more time.
Yeah.
And so I sat it all on top of the tank and then kept going back and forth to the window. Then I took, oh my God.
It's the little things.
It's the little things. And then because I'm a fucking genius,
of course,
I took my scales and found duct tape, and I went out back because I'm like, where am I going to hide scales, right? Because I can't flush a fucking scale. And I lifted up my grill and started duct taping them
to the lid of the grill,
underneath the lid of the grill. I'm like, because they won't look here.
Right.
And I shut it, and then I started calling or texting my friends. I don't know if we texted back then, because this is early. No, this is mid 2000s. So yeah,
but texting still sucked because you had to hit the button 3 times to get to the
T9,
C or the F or whatever.
And so I'm going out my back door on my deck, and I'm trying to figure out which fences could I, because keep in mind I was 310-pound fat fuck, like that. It was a drug addict and selling drugs, and I'm drinking every day, and I'm like I can't move.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there looking at the fences in my backyard going, okay, if they knock, which one of these fences can I actually jump?
What's the lowest fence I could jump?
So that I can get away and fucking run down the street like they're not going to catch me. And then I finally had this moment. I had this weird moment of like clarity.
Yeah.
That I was like, dude, if they were coming in, they wouldn't be sitting outside of your house doing paperwork.
Yeah.
Like they'd have came in.
They'd be
they weren't going to knock and say, hey, Mr. Oberempt, can I come inside?
Yeah.
Like they're just fucking coming. Oh my God. And like that was the most eye-opening moment. And you would think that that's when you'd stop.
A lot of people don't.
But it's not.
A lot of people won't.
I didn't. Like all I did was I watched him drive away and went, oh man, I'm good. And fucking put everything back and kept going until I ended up getting sent to jail.
Yeah. So it's different for me because in college, they wait till they gather evidence all season, so they're really deliberate with colleges, how they collect data and information about who's selling drugs or involved in that network. And so what you would know is they would always bust everybody like a week or 2 before finals or something like that. So I had already known, it was like my senior year. I had just gotten involved back in the stuff after years of not doing it, I have a master's and bachelor's degrees. It took me 6 years to get my bachelor's after failing out.
Nice.
And so, I'd seen this cycle happen so many times with so many different people, big, small, whatever. Yeah. And so I knew that time was coming up. And then the second I had the inkling that something was going wrong, I'm like, I already knew that time was going to be over. Yeah. And that was going to be a chapter that came to a close. And frankly, I didn't really want to be involved in it.
Right.
But it was so fruitful and productive. Right. And I felt so good about it. All my clients and customers were so happy that I kept doing it. And it was providing this life for me where, I was flying down the Key West. I bought a nice BMW, bought a motorcycle, and did all these things for myself that my parents would have never done for themselves. And I was so happy to finally have these things that some of my friends had. And have earned it myself. Yeah. And, but I knew that chapter was coming to an end, and that closed that book. And then, I graduated right after that, moved home, and, I'm working construction again, doing what I know and a job I already have. It's a great job. And, I was making over $50,000 a year as a college student. Oh. So that was like fantastic, pulling $1,000 a week while being in school. Like that was an incredible job. And, my dad casually says to me at like a Thanksgiving dinner, I'm very open with my parents about everything I do. Like if I'm ashamed of doing something, I'm not going to do it, right? Or I'll do it and then stop doing it immediately. Yeah. And that wasn't one of those things. And my dad's like, Skippy, you have a degree in environmental science. You love sales. You love talking to people, making relationships. Why don't you go out and sell solar panels or something like that?
Or something like that.
Yeah. It was literally that. It was a casual thing at my
It wasn't like he'd done research on solar panels.
Not in the slightest.
He was just I heard about these solar panel things.
Completely off the cuff. And so I'm like, all right. And at the time I wanted to move down to Miami and live in a high-rise condo in like Miami, Florida, and look at the thunderstorms out over the water. I wanted to have a boat right at the bottom of the building in a little marina, scuba tanks, all my scuba gear, ready for open water diving, ready to go. Yeah. And that was my dream. And so I was like, I immediately get home and I get on Craigslist and I'm like, solar Miami. And I'm like, wow, you can make 50, 80 grand a year, first year out of college, selling solar panels. I'm like, Dad, you're onto something here. I'm like, thanks for saying that. And so I just can, because it's so hard to move to Miami, especially when you don't really have a ton of cash. Yeah. I get online. I'm like, well, let me just check my local hometown. And I applied for an entry-level solar sales position, commission only. And this is back when solar was cash only. This is in 2010. We didn't have any financing at all. Okay. You look at where the market is. We're in a massive recession at the time. Nobody's got any capital. Everyone's going bankrupt. Credit's getting destroyed. And I'm going out there asking for people for $60,000 solar systems that they have to pay cash for. So I'm refinancing people's homes, doing home equity lines of credit, doing all these crazy things, dumping people's 401ks. But anyway, so I find this job. I apply. I'm one of 120 applicants. I was their second choice. They went with somebody that was more experienced than I was. And I'm devastated. I'm bummed. That was my plan. I had it figured out. I did 4 interviews with those guys. I'm like, there's no way after 4 interviews they don't like you. And so I'm a little defeated. I get a call back 2 weeks later. Hey, the person we picked didn't work out, but we really liked you because of your enthusiasm, your charisma, your energy, and you're also an Eagle Scout in the troop that the owner's son is a Boy Scout in, and he recognized your picture from the wall of pictures of all the Eagle Scouts on the wall. And so because of all those factors, we want to give you a chance. And a few months later, I'm the top salesperson in the company just because I think I'm hungrier and I'm trying to hustle the same way I learned how to hustle and go and drive. Yep. And, being a salesperson is like being an entrepreneur, being an entrepreneur in an entrepreneurial situation. Yeah, 100%. You're an entrepreneur. You run your own desk of business. Maybe you're lucky enough to get leads from the company. You create your own self-generated leads, whether it's referrals or your personal network. And you go and do that. And I just was like, wow, I've got this all commission job and the sky is the limit. I can go sell as much of this stuff as I want. It's legal. I get paid for this. And I was just on fire and I was super excited, but I sucked. I sucked for 2 years because I had no formal sales training. I just had enough energy to go get the job done. Right. And then it wasn't until my 3rd year in solar sales that I got formalized sales training, an actual sales process where you learn how to, build rapport, I create trust, identify a problem, introduce your solution, build value in your organization, yourself, the solution, and you leverage urgency to help people make an informed decision more quickly than they naturally would.
Don't forget the thing that he just said. You can suck for 2 years and still make money.
Yeah.
Right? Just keep fucking going.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when I sucked, I bought my first Corvette.
But people fucking quit You know what I mean? Because they
Yeah.
think they suck, or you know what I mean, whatever it is, or they didn't get the training right away. And that's so frustrating to me, because it's like, because you did it because you were willing to do the grind.
Yeah.
You were willing to be consistent and go out there and do what you had to do to get the job done, and not just fucking throw in the towel.
And I'll tell you what, like 80% of people in the world are qualified to do the things that I've done.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think I'm really that much smarter than anybody else. I don't think I'm that much better than anybody else.
Yeah.
But somehow competitively, I look around a room and I'm like, I'm willing to outwork all of these dudes, you know?
Yeah.
And
Same
I
thing
will
when you
go
walk into
for
a
it.
bar and you look around and be like, all right, how many asses can I actually kick? Just in case some shit fucking goes down. Yeah.
You know, and so that was just the kind of the mentality I took towards it. I worked super hard, and I worked at a couple different solar companies in the beginning as I was kind of figuring it out. And then I got recruited to a large national company. They gave me my first training, and then my sales took off. And it changed everything for me, because now I was going out there with a plan and a purpose every single day. And you don't have to have the best sales process ever. The best sales process is the process that you're willing to master. It could be a simple process that's not even the best.
Right.
But if you become the master of something, it's way better than not being the master of anything. I mean,
Or being half-assed at 10 things.
yeah, look, I hire handymen all the time to come over to my house. I'm a contractor by trade. I just don't want to do this stuff, or I'm not as sharp on this stuff. And they can fix everything around my house, and they make 50, 70 grand a year. You get a freaking professional baseball player that swings a wooden stick at a ball, but they're really good at it, and they make millions, right? So become the master of something. And I learned how to become the master of a process, which became the best process for me.
Right.
And that changed my career. About the same time, that's when I started skydiving, because now I had a little bit of cash. Yeah. So I did like 150, 200 skydives, and I'm like, this is the life for me. I was suffering through another cold, wet winter with limited snow in Pennsylvania. I don't think there's any point in being cold unless you have snow to play with, you know? And so I was like getting seasonal depression from that. And I'm looking at like all this awesome stuff on YouTube of all these people doing things in sunny, warm weather and having a blast. And so I decided to take a 3-day trip to Southern California to go to Skydive Elsinore, where we did our jump today. Yep. And I did a 3-day trip here, and I was like, this is the life I want to live. I know I can do a lateral transfer in my company to the local sales office here, because there's a large national solar company. And so I get home, I tell my wife, Lauren, who let me go on the trip without her because we couldn't afford to take her with us, but she knew I was going to explore a new life. And I said, like, honey, I love you. That's it, we're moving. So we sold my car, we sold her car. We returned my solar Prius back to the company. We packed up everything we could fit in the Corvette I had bought myself. And 2 weeks later, we drove out to California.
You can't fit
and that
much
was
in a
it.
Corvette.
You'd be surprised. The trunks are massive. It's like a hatchback. And I had my printer in there so I could print out my contracts. I had my computer in there, a few weeks worth of clothing. And we literally just set out and went and never looked back. And then, you know, my first year out here, I made a little over 100,000. Then my next year, a little over 200,000. Then the third year, almost 300,000. And the whole time I was just doing solar to get me up to 500 skydives, where I could become a professional skydiver and start skydiving for work. I just never wanted to leave the drop zone. I love the vibe, the community, the people, the activity. And then after I made like $200,000 and then almost 300, I was like, you know what? I'll skydive on the weekends.
Right.
I've like stumbled across a career here.
Right.
And then that's when everything took off. And then eventually my manager had an opportunity to take over as the president of a small solar power company at the time. They maybe had 60 or so employees, and he offered me the opportunity as his top sales rep to come get my toe wet in sales management. And it took off. Over the next 4.5 years, we went from 60 to somewhere between 600 and 1,000 employees seasonally, depending on what season it was and how much canvassing we were doing during that season. And everything just exploded. The career took off. I went from sales manager to sales director to vice president of one of the top 5 residential solar companies in the country. And we sold that company twice to 2 different private equity organizations. And
what was the name of that company?
That was Horizon Solar Power, that later merged with a company called Sungevity, which is like $1 billion company or something huge. At one point, they had gone out of business. They were bought out of bankruptcy. Then that company was losing money. Our company was making money. They bought our company to merge it with Sungevity that was losing money, so that we could stop the bleeding and then put our management team in control of the combined organization. And then after doing that, we realized we really don't like working for private equity anymore. All of a sudden, overnight, the customers became numbers. The employees became numbers. And that couldn't have been more of a stark contrast to how the original founder ran the business. And so we were like, why don't we just go launch that same original model again and just do it better and faster with the knowledge we have now.
And you didn't have any non-competes or anything that you couldn't do that?
No, we did. I ignored all of them.
Love it.
Yep. We just went out and did it. We got one cease and desist letter and never looked back. And they closed when they furloughed everybody over COVID. We hired everybody, which circumvented our non-solicit, since they were all furloughed.
Yeah.
And so we hired tons of staff. So everybody let everybody go. And we said, look, if we close our doors during COVID, we'll go out of business just like everybody else. Or we hire everybody, we double down, and we either make it or we don't, 50-50 shot. So we rolled the dice. We hired dozens of people. And all of a sudden, our company exploded overnight.
So what did you do during COVID? Did you keep knocking doors?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Yeah, that's what I wanted to hear. I was just curious.
We were knocking doors with gloves and masks
Yeah.
and being extra courteous. And,
Yeah.
you know, frankly, at the time, like there wasn't a whole lot of data on COVID. So,
Right.
you know, it's like expect the worst, hope for better.
Yeah.
I don't want to get killed. I don't want to kill you. I
Right.
don't want my employees to go home and kill their grandmother,
Right.
you know, from
Right.
getting her
Right.
sick.
Right.
You know, so we kept our distance, but we declared ourselves as we're an essential service.
Right.
If electricity services aren't a utility that's an essential service, I don't know what is.
Right.
And that was good enough to convince ourselves to be confident. I don't know if that would pass muster or not.
Right.
Right. But
Did you have to like qualify somehow out here? Because obviously,
no,
I
we
know
didn't
it
have
was
to do anything.
Okay,
We just kept working. We were the only people on the roads. It was awesome.
Yeah.
No traffic in Southern California. That was an amazing thing. I abused the roads in the Corvette at that time.
I bet you did.
We did.
Bet you did. That's awesome.
You know, so that was kind of my career path up until I decided I wanted to do it on my own.
Yeah.
And then I went to resign to my boss. I created this business plan for myself. And I said, you know, Brian, I love you. You're my mentor. You're the reason that I'm in the position that I'm in. Yeah. You've taught me everything I know. I can't talk myself out of this business plan to do this for myself. And so I asked him out on a Saturday morning, and he knew something was serious. And we went out and we got dinner in San Clemente out on the San Clemente Pier. And I broke out this whole business plan. I walked him through the whole thing. I told him, you know, why I wanted to leave and what I wanted to do. And it was less that I wanted to get out of there and more that I can't convince myself not to take this next step in the journey of my progression in my life. And he takes like 45 minutes, painstaking review, goes over every Excel spreadsheet, cell, and everything that I'd put together. And then he was like, well, reaches in his briefcase and was like, I made a plan for us to build a business together. Why don't we do that? I'm like, done. And so we had both been in a really miserable meeting that Tuesday and locked ourselves in our office and hid from each other all day long, and both made business plans at the same time and the same day, hiding from each other in our offices. And then, you know, discussed it over that weekend.
But he made his to do it with you.
With me. And I made it to do it on my own because he had like, you know, he was higher up in the business, had different stakes on the line.
Did he have ownership stake?
Yeah, I know. Okay. I know at least when they sold the company the first time, he owned several % of the organization, which translated to millions.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I assume there's no way he would ever leave.
Right.
And he would never, as a good leader, share inklings with me that he was uncomfortable and not confident in the business.
Right.
What I didn't know is he shared all the same feelings I did. And boom, that's how we started Current Home. And that's literally awesome. I go from making, you know, like almost 400 grand a year, making over $1,000 a day, even on the days I'm not in the office working. Right. To the next week, I'm mustering up the courage to go out and knock doors in my neighborhood and be a door-to-door salesman, starting from the ground up again. That's and, crazy. You know, here we are 4 years later doing, you know, $40-50 million a year in revenue and, you know, 200-ish employees. And now we've got a real business again. But it was an incredible journey. And
good for you.
I look back sometimes, I'm like, man, I don't even know if I could do that stuff again that I did before. Can I muster up that same hunger that I've mustered up previously to do it? And I always think I can't, and then I find myself looking back on a new challenge that I'm asking myself that same question on. I'm like, I guess I can.
Yes, you can.
Yeah.
I think that's something that people can get from that. We actually talked about that a lot in the car. And it's
we did.
Yeah, put some shit in front of you and make you have to go get it.
Yeah, like when you look at the book Rich Dad, Poor Dad, I'm definitely poor dad.
Right.
Like the things that get me motivated are fear.
Right.
You know, fear of loss, fear of failure. When I'm fat, happy, and comfortable, I am inherently less motivated than I am when I'm hungry.
Right.
And so like if I ever really want something for myself, whether it's a house, a car, a boat, an airplane, whatever it is, I will go out there and I will just get it.
Right.
As long as I can get qualified for it, I'll get it. Right. And then all of a sudden I kick into this like insane high gear and I go earn it.
Yep.
If I try and earn it first and I don't have that, like the carrot's too far away to feel real.
Yeah.
You know, when I can go get in that and go ride that carrot, fly that carrot.
When the back's to the wall.
Yeah, I need that. And I know that's probably the wrong advice for most people, but for people like me, I need that real heavy drive. I need something heavy to push me.
Yeah.
And when I have that, I'll do things that I can't believe I can do.
You know what's really funny is that Anthony that works for me, he left a job not long before he started working for me, and he worked for some other guy selling siding and windows door to door. And I asked him why he left, and he was like, because the boss was a fucking lunatic, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, why was he a fucking lunatic? And he goes, we'd go into sales meetings. He goes, and he would tell us, I just remembered this. He would tell us to go fucking buy a boat.
Yeah.
Or go buy a fucking car.
Yeah.
He goes, so that we'd work harder to be able to pay for it.
That's me.
And he goes, I thought he was such a fucking cocksucker for telling me to go do that. He's like, I couldn't work for him anymore. He's like, and that's why I left. I'm like, that's interesting. And so like, as I was hiring him or whatever, I was like, yeah, that's awful. That's a terrible idea. But like, as I thought about it, I'm like, guy's kind of fucking, like, it's kind of genius. Like, it's a great idea.
Certain people need that state of mind to bring the best out
and
of
others
them.
Don't. Like, others
I
shouldn't.
love being the underdog. I've always been the younger brother. So I've always come from an underdog situation.
Yep.
And so when I feel that pressure of I'm not supposed to win, I'm supposed to fail, I bring out this side of me that's like, you're not going to stop me.
Right.
Like stop me, prove it.
Yeah.
And,
I get that because like I feel like that's been most of my life because every situation I've been put in, whether it was like when I was trying to get sober or it was, I was always the kid when you went to parent teacher conferences, right? It was always like, well, he's got potential. I always had some fucking great potential. I just wasn't executing on the potential. Right?
I was in the potential boat myself, not currently doing well.
No, a lot of potential. And so like, yeah, I get that feeling. Well, hey, we went for a really long time, which has been fan-fucking-tastic. What we do at the end of every episode is we give the guest the last 2 minutes for anything that they think that we missed or that, they're passionate about that I didn't touch on or something that you just want to expand on to leave the people with.
One of the topics that we talked about earlier that I thought was interesting is so many people get so close to greatness and then we get like 90% there and then we don't stick out that extra 10%.
Yes.
It gives you like the 150% fruits of your effort, right?
Yep.
And I look at so many amazing salespeople, so many amazing sales managers. And, I talk a lot about sales because that's what I've lived on most of it. But same thing with construction. Yeah. Like we don't get 90% of the countertops done and then we leave. We finish that job today.
Right.
And, I thank my wrestling career, wrestling for 1st through 12th grade and rugby and growing up in the Boy Scouts and being in the United States Naval Sea Cadet Corps, really beating this discipline into me because I think the thing that really makes the difference between somebody that makes $70,000 a year and somebody that makes multiple hundreds or millions of dollars a year is that just that last 10%. Like everybody's got 80, 90% of it.
Yep.
And the very elite are really not putting in that much more, but they're willing to do that much more to see it through. Yeah. And so, my message or my advice or even my reflection on myself would be like, just do that extra 10%. Mm-hmm. When things suck, when it's tough, that's when people are quitting. Mm-hmm. For example, for the first time ever, I got my personal trainer to work out with me today. And so we're doing like an exercise at the end where he said, we're going to do 30 seconds of plank. And so we're planking for 30 seconds, not that big of a deal. We get to 30 seconds and he's like 30 more seconds. And I see him starting to shake a little bit. And I'm like, this is awesome because he's always busting my ass, And he's starting to shake. And we get to the 1 minute mark and I go 30 more. And he's like, all right, I'll do 30 more. And then now he's really starting to shake. And now I'm getting the second wind of energy,
right?
Because I'm thriving off of my success compared to his. Yeah. And so instead of when things get, and then at minute 30, I get 30 more seconds and he's like, all right. And then he's really sweating, really shaking. And I'm getting more and more energy as it goes. And that's how I feel about it in my career. Yeah. When times get really hard and they really suck, I know that that's when all my competitors, all the people in the same position as me, that's when they're tapping out of the marathon. Yep. And so when things get tough, that's when I realize I'm winning. When you're working out, when you start to feel that burn, that's when the muscle growth starts. When you start to feel the burn, that's where the workout starts. That's when you start pushing it. Yeah. When you start pushing it in your career and times get tough, times get hard, that's when everybody else says times are getting hard too. Yeah. And they're checking out, and they're clocking out, and they're tapping out. And that 10% of you guys that stay in there, look at that with a smile on your face. Oh, this sucks. Yeah, I bet people are starting to quit.
Yeah.
I'm going to put my foot on the pedal and pour some gas on the fire and let's go. And, you know, so that would be like, you know, maybe a parting thought is
I love that.
There's so many of us that get so close. And I think we can all think about people on our teams that have gotten so close to being there. They had all that potential and you just needed a tiny bit more stick to it-ness.
Yeah.
And that would have gotten them there. So that would be my message is all of you guys that are out there banging on the doors, beating up the phones, doing these sales calls, doing the construction. Just know that everybody else is feeling that same pain. And it's just like, that's my trainer starting to shake in front of me and use that as this starts to suck. That's my second win because the second it starts to suck is when we start winning.
So take that clip, Lexi. I want that clip added to D2DU for the guys.
Perfect. Good.
Because that is a great clip for anybody in life in general. Like it doesn't even have to be work. Like that's life. So dude, thank you for such an awesome day, for an awesome experience, taking the time to sit down with your friend. Everybody loves your friend. Did we ever get a name for him?
His real name, his nickname is Wardy. There's like a whole documentary on him.
Is there? I haven't seen it.
Yeah, he was like this really nice guy, this football coach. I think everybody probably recognizes this from like all the memes during COVID. This naked guy with the giant everything and
Dick.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's everything this summer. And so I got I discovered Amazon during lockdown.
Yeah.
And so all those memes started coming around. I can't tell you how many like Carol Baskin and Tiger King mugs I have. Laugh at that too.
That's awesome.
But so this guy, really cool guy. Actually,
I'm
look up his story.
Came. I'm glad he came
I'm
today.
sure he did.
I'm glad that you came today. I'm glad that we got to spend some more time today and have another experience.
Yeah,
together.
absolutely.
So thank you for everything and the way that we end every podcast here. Remember, everybody, be authentic or get the fuck out.
Be authentic. Get the fuck out if you can't be authentic. Yeah. Swipes.